Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 59 of Celebrating the Brand Ambassador. I'm very excited to be here with, I'm Elaine, your host, if you didn't know. But I'm very excited to be here with two stellar brand ambassadors from different parts of the world. So this should be very interesting. I have Adam Frankowski. I say that correct?
Yeah,
Awesome.
pretty good.
And Jordan Felix. Adam is with Forman, and Jordan Felix is with Beam Suntory. So, gentlemen, welcome to Celebrating the Brand Ambassador.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, we are happy
to be here.
Me too. Yeah, Jordan, thanks again for getting up so early in the morning, and
Yeah.
Adam, staying in until before you have to go. I'm sure have some plans for the evening. All right. So I can never describe your job as well as you guys can. So, and feel free to expand, because what I've discovered, after so many interviews and brand ambassadors is, and I'm sure you've discovered this as well, like and your title is not even brand ambassador at this moment, Jordan. So you have a different title. So, that the responsibilities under one title can be so vast and so different depending on what company we work for. So Adam, I'm going to start with you. Please, like what your job title is, what your responsibilities are, what country you're living in, right? What you do.
Of course. But Elaine, first of all, thank you for inviting me to this podcast. I've got to say it because it's a great joy for me. And when I look at the names that took part in this podcast before, I do feel very, very honored to be part of this project.
Thank you.
My job title is brand ambassador for super premium brands. I work for a company that is mainly famous for Finlandia vodka, at least in Poland, where there is a still huge market for vodka, and obviously Jack Daniels. But the brands I'm responsible for are Benria, Glendronach, Glenglassaugh, Woodford Reserve, Ford's Gin. So they are all super premium brands. We also call them emerging brands. And I'm pretty much covering the whole country. That means lots of traveling and mainly driving. About my responsibilities, I would say they are very diverse, and I think this is very, very typical for the role of brand ambassador all over the world. So obviously the foundation is advocacy. It's lots of external and internal education. So my calendar is filled with trainings, with master classes, with workshops, and as we very often say, not 2 days are ever the same. So this is what makes this job so interesting. And that's true. I totally agree. Sometimes one day it can be very basic presentation about spirit category for a distributor, and the other day it might be a sophisticated food pairing dinner. So that's very, very interesting. So my job obviously involves working with on-trade, bars, restaurants, hotels, but also off-trade, distributors, specialty shops. I would say the split is 50-50 for my responsibilities. And the biggest part, in my opinion, the most important is building relationships, making connections. I think this is what makes the job of brand ambassador so interesting. But not only bartenders, also the key people in the industry, managers, shop owners or bar owners.
Mm-hmm.
Recently, the focus, as you both know, is also on building relationships with bloggers, with influencers, and the presence at social media. At the brand ambassador job, it becomes more and more important. So yeah, many things. Also other responsibilities like some office work, obviously, some administration, cooperation with the team, with marketing team. In my example, it's being a source of insight for the trade, for the trends, for competitors, and probably a few more things. So that's
that's a big job. I mean, it really is. I mean, thinking about all the different skill sets you need to have to be able to connect with all those people, especially when you're talking about the fact that you're doing training, you're doing dinners, like you have to be a host as well as a great presenter. You need to understand how to sell, but at the same time be able to speak the language of a distributor, and then to work with the internal team to be able to bring insights, which is something we'll talk about a little bit more, because I almost forgot about that, because that's a big, I think that's something that brand ambassadors really need to get better at, is bringing information from the field to add more value to their job, to like, so that they can make, I always say you should make your marketing team look like rock stars by providing them inside information that you have discovered, so that they can stay on top of the trends and that they can do their job better. And that's what, when they come down, they're like, oh, where should we make cuts? They're like, my brand ambassador is a valuable resource. They're better than any research program or any company that I spend 10,000, thousands of dollars on, bringing me what they say is insights. This person's doing it, day to day. They're in the streets. So I think it's something that people need to get better at, and really communicate more. So thank you, Adam. We're definitely going to talk a little bit more about that. Jordan, yourself?
Hey, so right at the moment, as you mentioned, I don't have the title of brand ambassador, but I'm on what's called an on-premise portfolio manager, or an OPPM, as the program's called within our big company of being Suntory. It's a wonderful program where they really take talented people within the market to really have a localized effect to bars and restaurants. So I deal 100% with on-premise. Building those relationships throughout the city of Portland, greater city of Portland. So I'm not only just doing downtown or that sort of stuff, but I'm out in Lake Oswego, Beaverton, Oregon City, that sort of stuff, going out and creating that. And I love that note that you mentioned about marketing. It's something that I think we're starting to figure that out within our company a little bit more. And hiring really great people within the market to maximize and premiumize. That's really the route that Beam Suntory is going, is really elevating those products, moving into more small batch and that sort of thing. And just having, and to touch on Adam's point, just really building great, strong relationships with on-premise accounts, and looking how to be not only a part of the bar or the restaurant necessarily, but part of the communities that these bars and restaurants create. We're seeing a lot more of charity cocktails. We're seeing a lot more of involvement of bars and restaurants as hubs of social connection. And we want to be a big part of that as well. And I think as does any other brand on the market.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense, because you do, and especially, and we're going to talk about the fact you're in a control state. So relationships are very important. And Adam will explain. I don't know if you know what a control state is, but it's a wonky little thing that we have here in America, a leftover from Prohibition, which we'll touch upon. But yeah, relationship building is probably the most important thing. But I like the fact you're getting involved in the community. I mean, it sounds like, Adam, you're getting involved. You're also getting involved in the community. But I wanted to touch back on and the crossover of bloggers and influencers. You're the first brand ambassador to really touch upon that. Is that something, I don't know, and Jordan, I want to get back to but I want to go back to the bloggers and the influencers. How do you influence them? Terrible question. How do you connect with them?
Yeah, I think the personal connections are the best, and we meet on many occasions. There are events like whiskey festivals, for example. During lockdowns, we were meeting over like online tastings. So Yeah, we try to reach out to those people because we know how important they are. They bring credibility to our brands, to all we do. And when I look back, I can see the switch. I can see that nowadays it becomes like so much more important as the responsibility for brand ambassador. So
Yeah.
the world around us is changing. Lots of communication moves to social media. So I believe the brand ambassador needs to be also the part of this digital world. Yeah, and that's what we are working on, what we are focusing on
No,
at our market. Yeah.
no, that makes a lot of sense. I know I've done like, split screens with, an influencer, and then I'll be interviewing them, and we're talking about brands, sending them products so that they understand it, and doing events just for influencers so they get to know your brands. I think
Thousand
that's a,
percent.
yeah, absolutely, really,
Yeah,
really important.
I just did one for El Tesoro about 2 weeks ago, and it was 100% just that. And that was just in the city of Portland. To know that there are 50 influencers that all have Instagram followings over 50,000 is just mind-boggling to me. You
Wow.
know? Yeah.
Hey, it's where our community is living. It's where people are finding it. But Jordan, you also talked about there's a lot of charity work happening within the bars and restaurants. Yeah,
Yeah,
what's that about?
we've started. So those who know of Portland, Oregon, or have been to Portland, Oregon, we've really, particularly over the last. I mean, we've always been a very liberal state, but we've also we're home to a lot of nonprofits. We do. There's a lot of outreach, not only like based here in Portland, but then outreach beyond the borders. So we have Nike, the Nike World headquarters are here in Oregon. We have Intel, and those larger companies. A lot of those shoe companies have really pivoted as well to work with some of the local charities. We have micro entrepreneur community initiatives, MICO, that work with the African American community here in Portland and then along the West Coast. So that helps with helping with getting capital for some marginalized people within different cities. We also have one of the bigger hubs of Habitat for Humanity here in Portland as well. It's a landscape of we do have quite a lot of nonprofit heads and centers here. Hey Love, who just recently took American Best Hotel Bar, they always have a charity cocktail at the very top of their list. Yeah, it's a fantastic initiative with and they've been doing one for immigrant reform, not reform. It's more of law and raising money for law representation for immigrants. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. So
yeah.
is that how people are helping them? They're putting a cocktail on the menu that they're dedicating to that cause?
Yeah, and then that particular on-premise will take care of the portion of funds getting to that particular nonprofit.
That's great. That's really great initiative. Well, let's talk about a little bit more about your exciting career in Portland, because you actually have. I mean, you've worked with some people I know. You worked at Clyde Common, and you're originally from Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're living, in Portland now. So you bartended at Clyde Common, all right? Then I know you were a bar manager at another great bar, the Whiskey Library.
Yeah, started the Whiskey Library in 2013 and ran that for 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I have not had the pleasure. It's always been on my list, so now I'm going to make sure I go see. It's still there, yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's entering its 10th year this year. So
I love. I've heard great things. Then you worked as a distillery brand ambassador, and a blender at Westward Distillery. Then you were a market manager for Uncle Nearest. That was your last job right before this new one. And now you're an on-premise portfolio manager at Beam. But as I said before, the thing that really, I was like, wow, he really is, this seems to be full circle, and you confirmed it, that you really love Japanese culture. So so expand upon that, about your love and fascination with Japanese culture. And then I'm assuming that's why you're at Beam.
Yeah. Basically, this is a culmination of two parts of a life, I guess. Growing up in Australia, you were encouraged to learn an Asian language and a Romantic language, at least at the schools that I went to. And so at a very young age, we were introduced to some amazing languages, Mandarin, Cantonese, as well as Italian, French. Sadly, no Polish, Adam. So we'll have to work on that in Australia. But I did Italian and Japanese for about back-to-back for the first 2 years, and I just got hooked with Japanese. And that started around year 9, and then it ended up becoming my university major. And then I went out and lived in Japan and taught English in the countryside. I didn't live in a small town, so my Japanese got really it accelerated with proficiency. And then I started doing some translations for Lonely Planet, the guidebooks. And basically, as the world shifted and that sort of stuff, I found that I was really gravitating towards bars and restaurants and being a bartender and running certain things. And so, fast forward to now, I'm now 41, and this Beam Suntory jump and opportunity was such that I could not take this opportunity to at least get an entry level into this amazing brand, and then eventually, hopefully, go to House of Suntory full time in the next 1 to 2 years. I love the culture. I've lived and breathed it. I've fought in it, as I did kendo for 9 years as well. But it's just it's something that I really truly love, and we have a strong connection here in Portland as well that we're only building. We're in vogue for Japan right at the moment. A lot of things that we do here are doing there. We have a special funky donut shop here that's been then replicated like the Japanese do in 4 locations over there. So it's just there's a lot of great opportunity here in Oregon. Yeah.
I was gonna say it probably really helped you living in Oregon, because I know a lot of Japanese, and people from Asia come to Seattle, Portland, because it's close. Yeah,
it's very close, and now there's regular flights coming over as well. So yeah, it's an exciting time to see where our relationship's gonna improve and where to go.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great to hear there's some things changing in Japanese whiskey a lot. Like they're making more standards, and there's definitely which is fantastic.
Which is really exciting to see that future start to become a reality in the next 1 to 2 years. Maybe even hopefully we'll start to see some significant changes. But Suntory celebrates 100 years next year, so that's going to be a big kickoff. 1923 was when Yamazaki was constructed, and next year being 2023, we'll start to see a big push not only from our company but many other different Japanese companies as well.
What other changes are going to be coming in the next 2 years, you think?
Hopefully a little more of a focus on there won't necessarily be regulations, but there'll be more of a focus on what's being made and how it's being made, and how there may be local regulations that be coming in place. I've been hearing some rumors and murmurings, particularly in western part of Japan. So yeah.
That is great, because it definitely hurt. Like everybody was obsessed with Japanese whiskey, and then it started getting a bad name because people are like, oh, it's not even made in Japan. Like it's the whiskey's made someplace else, and they then it's distilled or aged in a Japanese, and you're like, what?
What's going on?
What's going on with that? And I was very disappointed. But I know that's not true with the brands that you represent. Well, let's jump into Adam. What is the Polish market like? The cocktail bar scene? I know vodka is a big thing there, which, in America, tequila is the new vodka. So, expand a little bit about that. What is the cocktail culture there?
It's really interesting how it is changing, and above all, I would say that this Polish bar scene is growing really fast right now. So. Each year it becomes more professional, and even COVID or lockdowns didn't affect it. It didn't slow it down, in my opinion. So it's great to see. Obviously, you can see lots of passion and lots of desire to grow. The standards are set really high in many bars in Poland right now. So it's changing in front of our eyes. I think the interesting factor is that many young Polish bartenders nowadays they work abroad. They often end up in great cocktail places like in London, in Amsterdam, in Berlin, and some of them, after gaining experience, they return to Poland. They try to change our bar scene. They come with fresh ideas. They inspire others, show the new trends. So I think that's quite important for us. So the whole scene is changing, is rising. Also, the looking at the hospitality aspect, the quality of service, this is changing as well. Especially, I would say in the biggest cities,
Hmm.
Warsaw, Gdańsk, Krakow. Let me give you an example. This
Please.
year, a few weeks ago, for the first time ever, the bar from Poland, from Krakow, Tag Bar, was put on the list of the world's 50 best bars. So I
Amazing.
so yeah,
Wow.
I could say at last we were waiting for it for many years, and I really believe it was well deserved. Hopefully, it might be a turning point, so we will be recognized and appreciated more. So yeah, lots of great things happens in smaller cities. Unfortunately, maybe the situation is not that great because actually the lockdown was devastating for many outlets. And I can actually see that the gap between like main big rich cities and the rest of the country it is getting bigger, getting wider. So yeah, you get to see it. I would
Yeah.
like to invite you to Poland. You know, the bar scene is growing. It's getting better, and
Well, in
it's not.
America, I was going to say, in America, it's very interesting. And I wonder if it's the same there. Like, even in the smaller cities, there is at least one good cocktail bar. Like, they are the small fish, the big fish in a very small pond. Is that happening there where, like, there's like one, like,
Uh,
or not yet?
Maybe not yet. Maybe not yet.
Gotcha.
I'm sure it's gonna happen, but yeah,
Still growing.
the focus is on big cities right now. I would say that's where the energy is, where things are changing rapidly.
Yeah. Well,
And
that's why you have a job. It's because now your job is to educate all those. You get to go to those small cities, and we're going to
yeah,
talk about your school in a little bit.
it's a perspective for me. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And
No.
I would also say that we follow the trends strongly. What we see from like on the western side of our border in the UK, in France, in Germany. So we are not that different. I think we are learning from the best, and we are catching up pretty quickly.
No, which is fantastic. Did you find, actually, in talking about the 50 best, because this was a theory that somebody put out when I was in Berlin, that because a lot of bartenders do go to London, and they go to Berlin, they go to Amsterdam, and this is where all the bars were on the 50 best list. But because COVID forced and also Brexit forced so many bartenders to go back home, so that's why some great bars popped up in other countries, because all the talent came back home because of the pandemic. I don't know if that's true. That was a theory.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but yeah, definitely the whole situation, the COVID, the lockdowns, the Brexit, yeah, it probably made many people to reconsider the decision about coming back home. And yeah, we could see that trend. Still, many people are living, trying to get experience to learn the skill outside Poland, but others are coming back, and I think that's great. That gives the energy to the whole bar scene in Poland.
Absolutely, I do think that's fantastic, and it's true when you go to London, Jordan. I'm sure, like there's no English bartenders. Everybody's from someplace
Yeah,
else,
yeah. I was just
especially Italy.
just went to England for the first time this year, and yeah, it's surprising as an Australian the first time they've ever been to England. But yeah, every single bartender was either Italian or it felt Italian or Spanish, which was it was really interesting. I thought I went to Seabird, and it was just the most amazing Amari collection I've ever seen. I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
this is wow, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They all the towns they all go there. It's filled so many. There's more Italians there is in Italy, I think. All right, so you guys have both made, in the last five, couple of years, you've made career changes. So, Adam, you worked at Diageo, which we discovered through our interview that we had actually met before when I came over to Turkey with Diageo back in the day when they did a global conference, which was amazing, so much fun. And you were there for many years. Is where you kind of started your career before you made the now leap to Brown Forman. And then the same thing for you, Jordan. You were a market manager for Uncle Nearest, right? And now you joined Beam Sorry. Now, the one thing I definitely discovered is like I went from working for an agency that worked directly with Diageo to working for Anheuser-Busch. So actually working in the mothership.
Yeah.
There's a huge cultural change whenever you move jobs. And a lot of people within our industry, we kind of get comfortable. I mean, I say at Diageo for 15, 16 years, and you do kind of get stuck almost because you've been there a long time, because changing is frightening, right? You're kind of comfortable, you're in a good place, you like the people you're working with. But I think change is good. It does expand your world. You learn new things. You understand how a company can operate so completely differently. So what were some of, or I mean, maybe you didn't have any challenges, but did you find any challenges moving from one to the other, or just kind of shock of how things could be different? And, do you have any advice for people moving from one company to another? Jordan, I'll start with you.
Yeah,
like, why did you make the change?
Yeah, so my Westwood departure was COVID. So
right, okay.
That was the reason. So the reason why, that had made it. By the time that they were able to come back, I was already working for Uncle Nearest, so it was right in the heart of COVID. At that time in 2020, reset.
You're cutting out a little.
Oh, am I?
Yeah. Give me a second. You know what? I'm going to have until your internet comes back. Adam, we'll start with you then and let Jordan's internet catch up. So for you, you made the jump from Diageo, which is obviously an amazing company. Yeah.
Yeah, I made this change from Diageo to Brown Forman. And I have to say, actually, it was a big and bold step forward, because it was taking on bigger responsibility at that time, and simply because in 2018, when I started at Brown Forman, there was no brand ambassador position at all.
Wow!
So I was given the opportunity to build it, to create everything. And it was definitely a big challenge for me at the time, but I think that's also what I needed: new challenge, something exciting, something difficult. So it was. I look at it as if it was an opportunity for me, where I could learn a lot, where I could step out of my comfort zone, develop as a person. And to be honest, I have to say that my beginnings at Brown Forman were far from easy. It was much harder than I expected. The expectations were very high, and maybe I wanted also to achieve results too much, too fast. So I have to say it took me a while to settle. But on the other hand, I have to say that Brown Forman is a great company, and I felt that I was trusted all the way, and that was great. because this company is really great about supporting people. So that's why people here work for many years and they feel comfortable. So after more than 4 years at Brown Forman, I think the results of my work are there. So I also feel that I have changed as a person. So I don't regret. I think that was a great move.
No, and I've heard great things about Brown Forman. It is a family-owned company, rather than Diageo, which is the big machine. So you can kind of get lost in the mix. But you said something really interesting, and I hear this a lot, which is a brand ambassador. You get hired into a new company and you go too fast. You're trying to, and people get stressed out because they're trying to prove themselves. Like they're so afraid of getting fired. They're like, oh my God, they just took this risk on me and they hired me, and now I have to achieve all these goals really fast, and they get burnt out almost until somebody says, well, it's okay, like you're
Yeah,
fine, like
definitely.
yeah. Is that kind of what you were trying to prove to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but that's exactly how I felt at that time. I mean, to show everyone that I can handle the job, I can do everything, and yeah, that sometimes when you want too hard, you get frustrated. So yeah, that's very often the case.
So maybe the advice is don't do that. When you get a new job,
Take
kind of
your
settle
time.
in,
Take your time. Take your
take
time.
your time. It takes a while to achieve results, especially in a new company. I mean, when I went over to Anheuser-Busch, it was a massive change. It was a culture shock, especially since the job I got hired for disappeared. And they were like, oh, yeah, you're not doing that anymore. And they gave me a completely different job. And I was like, I don't even know how to do that job. They're like, you'll figure it out. And it was very, very stressful. And the same thing, trying to prove myself. I was working 90-hour weeks, and I was getting burnt out very, very quickly. But it sounds like it was a very good change. And obviously it made you grow as a person, as you said, which is fantastic. And Jordan, for you, I mean, going from Uncle Nearest, which obviously is a very fast-growing company,
Yeah.
to and I hear great. I know interviewed and talked to a lot of people from there. To going to Beam Suntory, what was the change of culture? Like that's two very different types of companies.
Very, very different, and it going from craft into a larger.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, going from 2 items to 375 was quite a big jump. So this was something I couldn't pass up, and I adore and keep in contact with the wonderful team at Fawn and that whole team in Tennessee are doing amazing things. But they saw where I wanted to go and where wanted to take my path in this industry, and they wish me the best. And I have really left on really great terms, and they're threatening to poach me back at some point when they're a global team. So
fair enough. And you're so going to the other side, like going to Beam. I don't know. Like, so the Beam Suntory, do you work directly for Beam or do you work for an agency?
Work directly for Beam. So there's only 3 of us that work directly for Beam in Portland. In Oregon. We have a state manager, a territory manager, and then myself.
Gotcha. And do they have brand ambassadors in Portland as well, or no?
We have what's called a BAS or Beam. We have the Southern Beam dedicated portfolio people or salespeople. Yeah.
Gotcha. So they're kind of like Brandon, but they're salespeople. But let's talk about it, because and you're in a control state. So why don't you explain to the audience and also to what it means to be a control state?
This question, I mean, it comes a lot. We're out of 17 control states in the United States. Oregon being one that was literally created straight after Prohibition. Basically, all the flow of traffic goes through the government. We have one thing called the OLCC. It's called the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, but it's actually changed its name recently because of cannabis. So now it is Oregon Liquor and Cannabis Commission.
Wow.
So they're handling both. So we were, in the last couple of years, we were able to have a little bit of a loosening up of the special orders process because they had to focus on developing cannabis and access to cannabis here in Oregon. And we grow a lot of marijuana up here in Oregon legally, and some illegally too. But basically, they have been focused on that. It's been, I think it's a somewhat amenable system. We have a centralized database where anyone, consumer or trade alike, can go online and see which store has what amount of that particular brand. And that's open to the public. And I think that's really useful. And knowing that a bottle of, say, Woodford Reserve, I'm going to hand it to Adam for a second. Woodford Reserve is the same price on the coast, on the Oregon coast, to the other side of Oregon, which is closer called Enterprise. Closer to Idaho, is the same price. That's a really handy thing to know. There's no additional taxes. It's a very amenable system. But there are downsides. Not all portfolios are created the same way. It's a pretty substantive process to get special orders or different building out portfolios here. So companies really have to come in with a big strategy. And it's definitely, it's a very, the system is a lot less to be desired as in terms of keeping track of new items, and especially as we're starting to allow 700 mils to come into this state, they haven't yet caught up to all of that. So yeah, it keeps you on your toes. I got to.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and you can't actually sell. So there's no three tier. So when you're a salesperson, you don't actually sell. You're just there building relationship because eventually they're ordering from a liquor store, right? Is that how it goes?
Exactly. Yeah, and the off-premise relationship, I imagine, would be very different to an open state in that because all of the liquor has to come through those state licensed stores, and so those state licensed stores then sell the liquor. But that's we're starting to get some interesting sort of openings up. There's a couple of Walmarts that are now allowed to sell hard liquor. And so we're starting to see up a little bit. There's super centers. We've offered the public on this 3 times and they've knocked it down. The OCC seems to be down for a little bit longer.
Yeah, fair enough. Because I just, and I talked to brand ambassadors who work in those states. It's a very different relationship because, they can't, there's no them going into sales. It's like, I have to find out what liquor store that they're ordering from and then make sure that liquor store has my product. Because if they are ordering only from that liquor store and they're not carrying my product, then that's a whole nother conversation. I have to go find make sure they sell into that liquor store first. So you have to get it sold into the liquor store before you can actually get it sold into an account. So there's an extra layer, and it really is about relationships. And you're not selling, you're just finding out and be like, hey, this order from that guy. It's a very, very different way of working. But that extra layer of confusion, though, that you have to sell into the liquor store first, I know for a lot of brand ambassadors can be very frustrating because then you have to educate the liquor store too and convince them.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Which is definitely.
Constantly just it's the on and off come together. They kind of fade into each other. So I do still enjoy off premise here, but I do have the on premise for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've also heard it for bar owners. It can be actually quite handy because they can special order things. They can order whatever they want. They can get the government. So even if it's not carried in their state, they can just say, hey, I want you to bring this in. I mean, they have a minimum, I think, that they have to order. But you can have, like, a friend of mine, Gary Crunkleton in North Carolina, he has an incredible whiskey collection. He's like, I'd never be able to do this in a normal state because I'm able to order whatever I want from around the country. And I just call the government and they have to order it for me and I get it special ordered in. Even if that brand's not carried in my state, which is kind of cool.
And that is very cool. One thing that will happen, however, is because a lot of those off-premise have access to the same special orders. Mm-hmm. Maybe someone in Eugene might go, oh, wow, there's a Yamazaki 25-year in the special orders. I'll take that when it was designated for one account. So what will often happen is you'll have to go and pick up your barrel from the other side of the state. So
That's
it's an
funny.
interesting way of doing things, you know?
That definitely is. I'm sure people are always on there scanning, like, ooh, what did somebody special
all
order?
the time. Yeah.
Maybe I could steal that. That is very funny. I never thought about that. That is a very, and my friend Gary, he said the amount of alcohol in his bar in the basement is insane because he has to order. Oh my God, you can't just order, a case. You have to order like 5 cases or whatever it is. So he has a ridiculous collection. Well, Adam, we were talking about, so both I want to talk about, I know in your role is different, Jordan, but how is it different? Well, I don't know, Jordan, is it different? You're being, and Adam, I'll start with you, but how is it different being a brand ambassador? What do you think is different about being in a brand ambassador role compared to being in a sales role? And maybe Jordan, we could do that. Like, what is the difference there? But Adam, let's start with you, because a lot of people confuse the two, or they use brand ambassadors as sales reps, and I believe in the hybrid role. Like, I think a brand ambassador should be both. Like, you should be doing advocacy and building the brand, but also build and helping drive sales, because that pays for your job. But you are different, and I believe they should be distinctly different. Adam, what do you think? What makes a brand ambassador different?
I agree with you, Elaine, that there are many similarities. Yeah? There are many things that are similar, but yeah, there are also some differences. We very often say, and I think it's true, that brand as ambassador is a human face of the brand, right? So she or he should be a personification of the brand, of the vision of the brand values. So it's got to be consistent and transparent in the behavior, and I think that's very important for every brand ambassador. And also, I would say that nowadays the role of brand ambassador is changing. And that's okay. It should change because circumstances are different. It evolves. It evolves, in my opinion, from simply brand awareness to building emotional connection. So I would say being a brand ambassador, it's not about brand trainings anymore. It's more about connecting and inspiring. It's not enough to train bartenders as brand ambassador, because we should really focus, and that's what we do at Brown Forman. We're focusing on creating advocates within the trade. And that's important for me, for my team in our duties as brand ambassadors. And the main difference, the question was about the difference between sales rep and brand ambassador. I would say it's that the first one, sales representative, is focusing more on the physical availability, and the brand ambassador works much more on the mental availability. So I think
that's very deep.
Yeah, that's I'm working for a big company, and
I love that.
I love that. Yeah,
that's what we discuss, and I really believe it's true.
So you're working on the mental, like you're building that emotional connection between the brand and the bar itself.
Yeah, we are switching into that direction. It's not always easy, but that's the direction I think is right now.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Now, Jordan, I know your role is a bit different because you're an on-premise manager, but which is actually interesting, because I always tell people, a lot of companies come to me and they're like, Elaine, should I hire a brand ambassador? I was like, you should. But do you have do you have an on-premise manager? I was like,
right,
because I think that's the first role that should be hired before the brand ambassador. I was like, the brand ambassador should be there to support the on-premise manager. I was like, but if you don't have somebody talking to the distributor as like on your behalf and managing relationships, it's you're going to get your poor brand ambassador is not going to be able to be successful in their job. But I would love to hear your thoughts about that. Like, what's the difference between an on-premise manager and a brand ambassador? And do you agree with that?
1,000%. I mean, I think, I definitely work in a hybrid in that I am a brand ambassador in every of those little brands are in my portfolio. We do have Maker's Mark, Diplomats, and the House of West Coast brand ambassador. And when they come to touch, is the case for next month, we have them both. I'm there to support and build a little more of. From mine, Portland is still part of the bigger mesh that is the United States on the West Coast. So, with being an on-premise manager, I still do things. I still do, I create events. I do essentially what a brand ambassador does most of the time. But I really, in speaking to what Adam brought up, I think if there's anything that I could really say is being a brand ambassador before for one brand being Westward and then a market manager with Uncle Nearest, and then now doing, a hybrid of both. I just say that, alluding to what Adam said, it's sincerity. It's not what do those brands mean to you. They don't necessarily don't have to love the brand inside out. You have to be sincere about it. You have to want to understand how this particular is made. If you, for example, only knew that Margie Samuel's Maker's Mark was a big English pewter collector of English pewter, make that part of your core representation. Make that be part of who you are as Adam said, the human face of that particular brand and what that is. And, being detached from the KPI and the sales and that sort of stuff is only going to in better in the long run. And being sincerely publicly speaking, sincerely working with that relationship is that detaching you from that sales moment, that you're going to be the best ambassador for your brands no matter what.
Absolutely. So not concentrating all the time on trying to push it and sell it, but actually creating that connection with them and building a relationship and getting them to love the brand and understand it and appreciate it the way you do. If they feel it from you, then they're gonna feel it themselves. And if it's just a sales relationship, you're not going to get that emotional connection. I generally believe it. And how can this brand help your bar? What can it do for your collection? Yeah, and
often bars and restaurants are.
Elena, we don't hear you right now.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Like the commercial. I just had to take off my headsets because they stopped. They seem to have disconnected. So I love all of that because I do think that's what makes a brand ambassador special, which people ask me about all the time, like what makes them different than a sales rep, and why do we need both? And I'm like, you do need both. I'm like, there's a different value to each of them, and I think the emotional connection and that advocacy is one of the major ones. And Adam, and now I'm going to jump into something because I didn't have a chance to talk about this. Because Adam, one of the things, and we were talking about the bar culture in Poland, and there's definitely some gaps in education, and there's some room for a lot of education, especially in the smaller cities. And you actually are a trainer as part of a bar academy. It's called the Master Craft Academy. Correct?
Yes, right.
And so you do that alongside being a brand ambassador, or is it part of the same? It's part of Brown Forman.
It is part of the Brown Forman, but it is a little bit on site, I would say. I'm happy that you've mentioned that because it's been a very successful program for the last few years in Poland. And it inspired a lot of bartenders. So we hope to continue. But first of all, what is worth mentioning that Mastercraft Academy is not a competition. It's not a bartending competition. So it's not about winning. It's not about competing, being better or worse. It's all about building community, what we've discussed already today. It's about helping each other. It's about supporting one another. So that's the values of the program. Actually, the Mastercraft Academy is run by independent trainers. They are established persons on a bar scene in Poland, and they are well known. They've got the charisma, personality, and I think it really brings lots of credibility to the program. So they pass their expertise, they share their experience, but we also I've mentioned the aspect of building community. We also want to encourage participants to be active, to be creative in that process. I would say Mastercraft Academy is not that much about brand education, even though Brown-Forman pays for it. It is education, but it's beyond the brand. It's more holistic. I would say it's focused on the growth of the bartenders. So yeah, we cover lots of interesting topics, not only about the technique, about making ingredients, but also from the area of bar management. We talk about trends. Storytelling also what is interesting. We covered subjects of well-being or mental health at this profession. So what is my role in this program? Because this is what I wanted to say. I would say firstly, as a brand ambassador, my role is to support our trainers, to make sure they have all they need to do their job, to share their ideas. And I'm definitely not at the forefront of this program. Our brands as well, they are present, but they are not at the forefront too. So the most important at Mastercraft Academy are bartenders. And secondly, for me, like personally, for me as a brand ambassador, the Mastercraft Academy is more about building a bond with bartenders than education itself. It's about creating the long-lasting community and making friends within the industry.
No, it makes
So I'm not at the center of that program. We've got independent trainers, and they do amazing job. But yeah, I'm around, I could say.
No, that makes sense. So it's an actual physical location as well, yeah?
I mean, it's been in the physical locations. We were visiting different cities before COVID. During lockdown, we switched to Mastercraft Academy studio, and we started to record, started to do it online.
Mm-hmm.
But it might switch. I hope it will switch back to our work being within the people and go to the industry again.
No, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of people do need training. I think that's such an incredible thing to be able to share with them, especially in the mental health skills, as well as bartending skills. And Jordan, I want to know, like, what is the level? Because I know there's been a massive shift in our industry where a lot of the experienced people left, and there's a lot of newbies, kind of green. So I don't like is this a big focus for you guys to kind of help with that kind of training, or like? Yeah,
you know that's
important right now.
That's a yeah. I'd say that right now is probably the core issue I think that's facing right now. I think a lot of our experienced bartenders and people went on to either go into brands in our industry, or in our case, a lot of them went and be real estate agents here in Portland. So we had a real, COVID really just kind of made a lot of our top tier people leave or figure out different paths. So for Beam Suntory, we have a Founders Institute in in a show. We, depending on the brand, we have centered bar trainings in cities. We also have the blend, which is a thing led by Robin Nant and Paler and Jesse McGuire, who look at creating storytelling. Really, really important. Not only for us as brand ambassadors, also for barmaids too. Being able to speak and be able to offer their expertise and be able to show how they create that particular infusion or immersion or any of that sort of stuff. So, we're quite active in a lot of that training. I think at a local level here in Portland, we could be doing a little bit more, and I think that's something we're going to be looking to do in 2023.
Fantastic. Yeah, I do see that a lot in New York. There's I talk to brand ambassador all the time. I'm like, this is your moment. This is your 2005. In 2005, I was teaching fresh juice.
Right.
That was like mind blowing.
Yeah.
I was mind blowing. I had bar owners telling me, "You're crazy. Like that's never gonna be a thing." And I was like, "Well, your neighbor's doing it. So when you start losing business to him or her because they're making fresh juice margaritas and you're still using
right, exactly, yeah."
And just teaching people how to shake and stir and that was revolutionary. And so I was like, now is your moment. I'm like, get in there. You have all these skill sets. Go and help your accounts, train their staff. They're drowning. Like they need you. So use it a way to bond with everybody. So anyway, we're coming up on the hour. So I always like to ask my final question, which is, everybody, we all have our beginning stories and when we first started. And now, as you learned, as you got, more experience, you realize some of the things you wish you knew back then. You wish somebody had told you when you first started that you now know. You're like, oh God, it would have been so much less painful if I had known that when I first started. I wish somebody had said something to me. So Jordan, I'm going to start with you. What do you know now that you wish you knew then? Any advice?
You don't have to do everything. It's a really big learning curve. I think, life-work balance is a real thing. And the healthiest you're going to be is when you can figure out roughly how to do it. You're going to beat yourself up. Like, I think that's something that you really should allow for yourself if you give any kind of, sincerity, as we were talking about, or human connection to these brands. You care. And so when you care, you're going to beat yourself up when things go wrong. So, find a way to detach, find your beach, find that time that you're able to sort of be able to detach. I will say calendars are your friend, calendar alerts are even your best friend, to put alerts on your calendar invites and that sort of stuff, because, I as a 41-year-old, I don't know for both of you, but I acknowledge that I'm also analog. So I continue to do both. I continue to write things down, and more often than not, decision makers that you do business with are probably as well. And if you do writing about something 3 times, it's gonna kill you. Just don't do only one thing if you grew up without, for example. So it's like, that's all I say, is that just back yourself up, and I think make that time for yourself. Look at that balance, and calendar your friend.
Absolutely. Calendars is definitely your friend. You plan out your week. I look at my week, I look at my entire month, and then big fan of organization and productivity and scheduling. I'm a mom as well, so you learn very quickly as a parent. Scheduling is the key to life. Everything you need to do, and it's definitely very helpful when you're working as a brand ambassador, because you have so many different people pulling at you at once, and you have to make sure your calendar is up to date and schedule things off for yourself as well. I used to block off Mondays and Fridays, and nobody could put things in my calendar because those were my office days. Back in the day, and I still do it as an entrepreneur. Like, my Mondays are just a day that I do not take meetings. I have very specific things one specific thing I focus on, which is developing more programs for my academy. And nobody talks to me. something
Yeah,
you would?
I would say I totally agree with what you've said, Elaine, about time management, how crucial it is to plan and to be on top of things. And I also agree with you, Jordan. I've got similar thoughts. What I know today and what I have learned is that you shouldn't expect at this job like quick successes, because building relationships, getting people's trust, it takes time. So,
Mhm.
so this job, even though it doesn't look like that on Instagram photos,
Yeah.
in my opinion, is really about like small everyday steps. It's about the right habits. It's about consistency. It's about patience, and it's about being reliable on a daily basis. Yeah, on one hand, the big spectacular events, all the creativity, it's all necessary, and it's all important, but it's not enough. I think to do it successfully over the years, you need to think about it as if it was like a marathon,
Mhm.
not a sprint.
Mm.
Yeah, that's a great
And
one.
very important also, and you've said that as well, and it's similar to the whole career in hospitality. Um, at this job, you can easily forget about your own well-being, about
Mhm.
your like physical or mental health. And I also wish I thought more about it myself when I
Yeah.
started. I wish I planned the time, I mean, for to rest, for example, to do it better. But I suppose this is what you get with experience. So
No, you do,
that's
because the job doesn't feel like a job sometimes, because you're out in bars, you're in
Right.
restaurants, you're doing what other people do socially, but you're still working and you're still on, and you don't learn to turn off, which is can be very, very difficult. And it is something you do have to schedule things and block things off in your calendar. So yeah, so well said. And that is, I think, and also what you said about a sprint, it's a marathon, not a sprint, is probably one of the major differences in a sales rep and a brand ambassador. A sales rep has instant wins all the time because they're constantly putting in orders and stuff like that. Where a brand ambassador is planting seeds. You're just planting seeds, you're building the relationship, and it's going to take, and this is something I have to explain to owners because they get very frustrated. Why is my brand ambassador making more placements? I'm like, it doesn't work that way. It's not instant. Just because they have lots of friends, their friends don't automatically take their brand in, like it's just not how it works. You have to build that relationship up because now they have a different relationship with their friend. They're now selling and their friend is now a buyer rather than just their friend. And those things take time. So I think that's a major difference, and that's what we do well, is building those relationships. Not that sales reps don't build relationships, just different.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to come on and sharing some really, really great insights. It's been a pleasure getting to know you both better. I look forward to meeting you both in person. But until that time, so Jordan, I'll let you know when I'm coming to Portland. Hopefully you actually are there.
Yeah.
And Adam, I don't know when I'm coming, but maybe next year after BCB, never know.
yeah, when you visit BCB, it's not far to come to Poland.
I didn't even know how that was only a 2-hour drive. So I learned something new today. But thank you for everybody who tuned in and for your comments. Thank you, Amelia. But this has been great. So with that being said, this was episode 59. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. And everybody, I hope everybody has a great weekend.
Thank you so much. Great
Thanks
to meet you. Great to see you again, Elaine.
You too. All right. Bye, guys.